and welcome back to the Hymn of the Goddess podcast. This is episode 3, and today I am joined by the lovely Arily Michele.
That's me.
Who is a singer, songwriter, producer, all-round artist from America.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here with me. Is there anything that I missed that you do in terms of your artistry?
I think you got all of it. Artist, singer, songwriter, producer kind of sums up everything perfectly, I think.
Okay, great. Let's get into the questions. I would love to start with, I read a little bit about you on your website, which is very professional, by the way, and very inspiring.
Thank you.
So if anyone's interested, the website is arilymichele.com, and it's spelled ARILYMICHELE.com. I always wondered, where did your unique name come from? And then I read it on the website. Would you like to elaborate?
My father was a Marine, and my parents used to write letters to each other back when snail mail was the preferred method of communication. And they would sign off their letters with "Always remember, I love you." And then eventually they shortened it to ARILY. And when I was born, my mother decided to give me that as a name.
Lovely. I mean, that's really cute. And it's nice and, interesting and unique name. Have you met anyone else with that name?
Not with my name specifically, but I did have like a DoorDash delivery person whose name was Arily, ARELY. And I thought that was kind of crazy because that was the only other time I've ever met anybody with even like a similar name, but he still pronounced it differently.
The way you just said it, that's how I thought initially your name was pronounced.
Yeah.
But then I looked it up in your Instagram. I mean, okay, so my name might not be so unique, but I've never lived in a country that people knew how to pronounce it. It's always been Darren and lots of variations.
I've definitely learned over the years that it's better to give people like the phonetic spelling so that they know how to pronounce it and they don't feel embarrassed by butchering it. And I don't feel embarrassed having to be like, actually it's because I hate doing that.
Starting with you and your origin, like what was your first experience, or how did you first get into music?
I mean, I've been singing for about as long as I've been talking. My mother used to tell stories about how when I was like 2 years old, I would belt out the theme song from the Titanic. I was just really moved by Celine Dion's like vocal prowess. When I was like 5, she had this like cheap Casio, I think it was a Casio keyboard, and I had a song stuck in my head. I found out later it's a Kylie Minogue song. Is it Minogue or Minogue? It was one of her songs. It was stuck in my head like all day, and I went home and I plucked it out on her little cheap keyboard. That was kind of the beginning of my music career. I started writing around age 8 or 9. I started producing around age 14, and I've just been collecting more and more badges ever since.
I mean, so wait, let me just go back to it. You were 5 years old and you just like went, and from hearing you played on the keys.
Yeah, I was like 5 or 6. And yeah, I remembered like the intervals, and I remembered how the tone sounded. And that was how I learned music in the beginning, was just by ear and kind of just mimicking what I heard and emulating it.
I have a feeling like if smartphones and TikTok were a thing back then, you'd be like a child star.
I actually did have like a YouTube channel when I was like 14, and I had a video that like got a ton of views, but I ended up deleting them because I was embarrassed. And I do wonder like if I had been more bold about sharing my music online, like where would I be now? But the songs were so terrible, so I'm kind of glad they don't exist in the digital blueprint. But it is fun to wonder like what would my life be like if I hadn't have done that.
I mean, I think, well, not all of us got a lot of streams in our videos, but many of us millennials seem to think like, I wonder what life would be like if I like got onto a YouTube bandwagon back then.
I think it's because we perceive that as being like easy money, like, oh, you just upload a video and then profit. But I have learned over the years how much work goes into not just like music, but also content creation. Like you do have to plan it. You have to do the set design, you have to film it, then you have to edit it, and then you have to optimize it for whichever like social media channel you're posting it on. And it's a lot of work. There's a reason why it's a full-time job.
100%. I used to think that. And then it got to the point where this was before I even decided to pursue music or start doing it. I wanted to have a fitness YouTube channel.
It's not too late.
I filmed an intro video, and then I filmed one more video of like me talking about stuff, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's a lot. I have beef with Apple, and trying to get anything work on Apple and transfer data is such a pain. So
Oh.
yeah, and that was a time where I was using an iPhone, and I just decided, you know what? No. Now I have a Samsung, and yet I still haven't really done it, but maybe one day.
It does take a lot of discipline, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And like, it's an eye opener realizing that, you know, you don't just become a star overnight. You don't become a YouTube influencer, whatever it is, overnight. And it's not an easy thing to do. You mentioning discipline is something I wanted to ask you about. Like, I know you have recently shifted to focusing on music more, pretty much like hard full time. I don't know how you would describe it.
I lost my job July of last year, and it was like a full-time marketing job. It was really stressful. I was not performing well for a lot of reasons. And when I was applying for jobs, I just was filled with so much dread of the idea of being at another like corporate desk job and having that be my full-time focus. It took me 2 years to put out my last album because I didn't have the time. And if I did have the time, I didn't have the energy because that job was taking so much out of me. And so after talking it over with my husband, we decided that I was just going to work like an easy part-time job. So now I'm working part-time as a barista. And then the rest of my time, I'm just focused on music because it's not just the musical aspect, although I am writing new songs and I'm making new demos and stuff and gearing towards a third album. It's also the content, it's the branding, it's the marketing, it's booking, it's press, it's all of that stuff. It is like multiple full-time jobs. This is why people get onto labels. And I live in Nashville, which is a huge music industry hub. And that's what I moved to Nashville to do, was to pursue music full-time. So I decided to just kind of take advantage of that opportunity. And it does require a bit of discipline because it's like, you know, I only work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week mostly. And now that I have all these days off, I can't just like sit around and watch TV or scroll on Instagram all day long. Like I have to be actively working towards something. Sometimes it's just an admin day. Like I plug all my stuff into like a document or a project management platform, or I spend a whole day filming and editing content, or I just spend all day recording. Honestly, those are my favorite days, my recording days. Just like cooking in the home studio, you know. It does take a lot of discipline because it is very tempting to just be like, you know, your unemployed friend.
It definitely must help that you're a Virgo, because what you are telling me, project management, program, this and that, is like, wow, that's all very.
If you could see my Google Drive. I'm also a producer, so I have other projects for other artists that I'm working on as well. And one of my admin days recently, I looked into project management platforms because I wanted to stay on top of all those things. Because I feel like if I'm not on top of it, my project, which is my priority, is going to fall to the wayside. So I plugged everything into Asana. The whole time I'm doing this, I'm like, this is the most Virgo shit I've ever done in my life.
Yeah,
no, but it works out great because I feel super organized, and now that all of that's out of the way, I can focus on creativity.
Is it pink, your spreadsheet?
Actually, yes. I have a very specific light pink brand color that I use for everything. I might end up trademarking my light pink, like Tiffany did with their blue.
Yes, that's
Reese's
exactly
did with
what
their orange.
And also, isn't Cadbury purple like an actual color as well? But I don't think it's trademark.
Yeah. Any brand where you know the specific color, it's probably trademarked because it's such an icon, especially like the Tiffany blue. That's such an iconic color.
Well, you'll move next then.
Let's go.
Do you have tips for anyone on how to plan your day around, you know, like what you said, you've got a day for admin, a day for shooting, for recording. Is it easy to stay to it?
I mean, it's exactly like any other job. I feel like with creatives, there is a tendency to not view it as a job. And that's because it's been systemically devalued over centuries. But when you treat it like any other job, you know, if you have like a desk job, you're like an admin assistant or something, you walk in, you have like a set of things to do for that day. I try to take it from that kind of a perspective because when you're viewing it as like this is a job, you want to be more efficient with it. You want to stay organized. That would be my advice to somebody who, even if they're not doing music full time, even if it's just part time and they have very limited time, that's even more of a reason to kind of view it as a job. You know, what are my to-dos for this week? I need to film this content. I need to make this demo. I need to send a message to a music venue or something. Have that like little to-do list written out and then just knock them out whenever you have the time for it, the same way you would with any other job.
Does it take away from any of the excitement when you view it as a job?
I mean, that's hard to say because it's exciting for me because this is what I've wanted to do for my whole life. I will say it's not as glamorous as we think it is, but every glamorous moment has its backstage. You know, when you think of like somebody getting ready for a show, like that's all glamour, but then you don't see the backstage where they're like in the robe and they're eating like potato chips and like their makeup isn't done yet. They're getting their hair done or whatever. Like,
Mm.
I kind of view it as like, it's not glamorous, but in order to revel in the glitz and the glamour, you do have to do the unglamorous things.
Agreed. No, I think we tend to forget, like, celebrities, they're just like us. They're also people,
Yeah.
and they have to do all of that stuff to
Yeah.
get to it. I think I remember Adele mentioning, like, people don't realize sometimes the kind of backstage and spaces they'd have to go through to get to the stage. And it's like two different worlds.
Yeah. I mean, because we're always seeing their highlight reels. We're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes. That's what I try to do whenever I see like a larger artist, to avoid like that comparison game, because that can be very toxic and very like, I mean, it's just not productive and it's not helpful. I just try to, whenever I see somebody who's like a really big famous artist, I love to imagine them answering emails or like sitting backstage on their tour, just like chatting with their friends the same way I do before my shows. Because I mean, that's what it is, really. It's like being on stage, being all like done up. Like that's maybe like 10% of what the actual job is. And the rest of it is all that like unglamorous. It's really fun to put on fun makeup, but you have to wash it off at the end of the day.
Yeah, that moment is always sad for me. I mean, it's bittersweet because it's like the makeup's going, the outfit is going, but I can do whatever I want with my face now.
But yeah, to answer your question, like it hasn't taken the excitement out of it. It's definitely taught me that like it's not all glamorous, but it shouldn't be.
I think then the glamour would lose its meaning if it was just, the highlight reel.
It's not super glamorous having to book a show and be like, please let my band play. But you have to do it if you want to play shows.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. The other thing I wanted to ask is, since you've had more time and more mental capacity, you're not tired and stressed from your day job, has that made an impact on your creativity?
Absolutely. And a complete stark contrast between the timeline for Highway Hypnosis and the timeline for the album that I'm working on now. Highway Hypnosis, it took me about 2 years to write 10 songs. I had a little bit over 10, but there were a couple that I left off because I wanted to put a hard stop. Compared to now, I have at least 9 songs already. And it's only been a couple of months of working on new material because I put out the album in July. I gave myself a little bit of a break to let it cook a little bit. I find that I'm taking a lot more creative risks because I'm not bound by like limited time and limited energy. My songwriting, I think, is definitely a lot more unconventional, which I think is a good thing because I'm pushing my own boundaries creatively and I'm taking more risks with like instrumentation. I'm taking on more challenges with like production and mixing. And then I also have the time and the capacity to help other people out with their projects. I feel like it's definitely improved my creativity. And I also want to acknowledge that like it is an incredible privilege to be able to do something like this. Not everybody has that opportunity, but I will say that for me, it's been very beneficial to have a lot more time and space to just do my thing.
No, I agree. I've been in a similar position and I didn't even work. And well, I did try and attempt to do stuff, but I always left it until the point where I didn't have that stress and lack of energy from, having a demanding job. And then I was able to start focusing on music. So I understand as well that, it is a privilege to have, but if you are able to find a way, like, I think a lot of us want to have both. Like, we want to have a career in something safe that gives us good income, but then also commit to our art. And I feel like not many of us have the capacity for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Whenever I told people like, oh, I lost my job, like I got met with a lot of condolences and I was like, don't be. I remember sitting at my desk about 6 months before I lost that job and being like, if my life looks like this for the remainder of it, I'm not going to feel fulfilled. I'm not going to be happy, and trying to figure out a way like to scale that down to part-time and then focus on music full-time. I think I was just too scared to make that leap. And so losing my job kind of forced me. This is how the universe deals with me, is like, I am so averse to taking risks. So sometimes like the universe will like in its own scheming way just kind of take a little bit of my stability away and force me into these changes that I want to make. I had it instilled in me that I need to have a backup plan in case music doesn't work out. But living in Nashville, my mindset has shifted to music is one of the only things that I care about enough to excel at it at a professional level. Other things are merely an extension of that. I took on marketing because I saw that it was very important for musicians to market themselves, and I wanted to learn how to do that. I didn't necessarily go to college wanting a career career in marketing. I went to college first to study music, and then I got a master's degree in marketing. I needed to take that leap because clinging to my safety net was ultimately hindering my growth as a musician, as an artist. And it is an immense privilege to be able to do this, but also I'm taking on an immense risk. And this isn't me digging at anybody who might be more risk averse. I totally understand, like, especially in America, it's fucking tough to make ends meet in this country. You know, I'm very fortunate that I have a husband who is happy to support my goals, and he's always known that this is what I wanted to do. And I mean, he kind of benefits from it too because he plays in my band. If my music career takes off, then his does too. When I have like a backup plan, I find that I get so focused on the backup plan that like my initial plan doesn't even get any attention. And so I feel like for me, I needed to have that huge shift. I needed to have the ground fall out from underneath me in order for me to finally feel comfortable enough to take that risk. Because I'm like, fuck it, I'm unemployed anyway. Like, what do I have to lose? And I lost my job like 2 weeks before my album came out. The irony of that was not lost on me. That timing, that wasn't lost on me. I felt like it was a sign that I needed to just kind of take that leap of faith. I think for me, it was the psychological aspect of, can I do this professionally? Yeah, I can. I just needed something to push me into that mentality. And since taking on that mentality, I feel like I've seen a lot more success and a lot more growth.
Amazing. And you know, this reminds me of Dochi's story. I don't know if you've been following it.
I love her so much. Oh my God. Because that was exactly the mentality that I had. I remember looking at it and being like, I'm okay with the unemployed to like Grammy winner pipeline. If that's the direction I'm headed, I'm totally cool with that.
So there's what, 4 years to go? I think from when she got fired until, let's go. But hopefully sooner.
Yeah, that's fine. I would put me right around the 10-year mark. You know how they say like it takes 10 years?
You've been doing music since you were literally a baby, so.
That's true. But I would say like pursuing it as a career and not just like a hobby started at age 23 for me.
I'm sure it will come round soon enough.
It always seems to be around 10 years. The way I like to look at it is 10 years from now, you'll be 10 years older anyway. Wouldn't you rather at least moved a little bit towards your goals than be 10 years older and be like, I wish I would have gone for it. It's never too late. And I feel like as women, like we buy into this like societal conditioning that like after a certain age, we're expired, we need to like settle down, and it's not applicable to men. So I refuse to accept that for us.
No, I agree with that. It's just what you said just now, like, I wish I had done that. This is how I feel right now. I wish I had pursued it sooner, which I did attempt at. But anyway, we are where we are now. But enough about me. I want to circle back in the corporate lingo to what we were talking about, your beginning moments. I mean, you know, starting to produce your music at 14, amazing. And then I know you were in a band. How was that?
I had wanted to start a band for such a long time, and it just like never worked out. And so when I moved to Denver, I was like, this is it. I'm going to start a band. I had a blast. They are still some of my closest friends. Me and the drummer of that band, Ryan Smith, we have been talking about starting a label together. We still talk. They were at my wedding. We're talking about recording something together, like remotely, because I'm in Nashville. Ryan's still in Denver, and Alex lives in LA now. Just kind of like a little like coast to coast kind of moment. I mean, that's the nice thing about recording music now is like you don't necessarily need to all be in the same room to do it. You can just send files to each other. It was a lot of fun. I've got some of my first moments on stage, some of my best shows, and it really gave me the courage to just lean into being an artist and being a performer. It's something that brings me so much life. It gives me so much energy, and it makes me feel so fulfilled. And I was so scared for such a long time. And I don't really know why. I'm still kind of unpacking that a little bit, but I was so scared to put myself out there as an artist for the longest time. And being in a band kind of empowered me to do that. And so I'm endlessly grateful to them. That was my first time recording professionally. It was my first time playing my songs, my original songs on a stage for people and connecting with them through that.
And I listened to the music, and I mean, it was really great. My favorite one, I think it was called Moonlight.
I figured you'd love that one. The story behind that one is, so I was studying opera when I was in college. I really wanted to write an opera about the myth of Echo and Narcissus. And 1 week after finals, I was like super stressed. I took some beers into a practice room. For legal reasons, this is not true. I drank a little bit to unwind. I just started like noodling around on the piano and I started writing Moonlight. I wanted that to be like the big aria. Every opera has like that one big aria that people love to listen to. It's almost like the hit of the opera. I wanted that to be the one. And then I realized that writing an opera is a lot of fucking work. So I moved to Denver and I dug that out of my pocket and I was like, let's turn this into a psychedelic rock song because why the hell not?
Oh, so it started like a real, oh, right, okay. Wow. That, yeah, because like the background at the end, I was like, wow, okay, that was, you know, I didn't expect it, but it hit so good. So you went from psychedelic rock to then going on your own solo and doing psychedelic synthpop.
My solo project was mostly born out of pandemic boredom, to be honest. I feel like everybody in Denver was putting out albums during COVID because there was nothing else to do. And my first album sounds totally different. And that was mostly just like I had all these songs that were written that my bandmates weren't feeling. It was a little too poppy for them. And so I decided to just kind of take them for myself and record them with a producer out in Evergreen, Colorado. My only regret about that is I wish I would have spent a little bit more time thinking about how I wanted it to sound. For me, it was just, I got to just do it. I got to just get these songs off of my hard drive and into the world. And so that was another reason why Highway Hypnosis took so long, is because I really wanted to be deliberate with the orchestration and the instrumentation and the production and how it was going to sound and the vibe that it was going to have. The new songs that I'm writing are like way more psychedelic. There's all kinds of time signature changes, tempo changes, funky key changes, stuff like that. And I'm experimenting with a lot of different recording techniques. I'd say Viewfinders is more of a dream pop band because Alex likes to listen to a lot of like post-punk and shoegaze, and I like to listen to a lot more of like psychedelic stuff. And so when you kind of bring those two together, it ended up being like a lot more dream poppy, but my stuff is definitely like psych synth pop.
Yeah, no, I did notice the difference from your first solo projects to then the album. I mean, I can relate, like you have these songs in you that you need to get out first before you can then focus on something more deliberate, like cohesive album. Do you have a timeline or when you expect the new album to come out?
I am planning on putting out at least a single by late September / early October of this year. I wrote a really like witchy, spooky song. It's got to be out there for spooky season. I want to do live drums on this album. I use drum plugins on Highway. Highway is probably more of a pivot point towards my sound. Like it's definitely got the elements that I like. And I think having recorded drums as opposed to like drum samples that I used is going to elevate my sound so much more. So if I can get things coordinated and recorded early enough, I might be able to put stuff out as early as June. But at the very least, I'm definitely planning on putting out at least one single this year and then possibly releasing the album next year, if not by 2027. I'm churning out songs so fast that I think I'll be able to get it done by next year.
I'm looking forward to hearing what new stuff is coming out. And, you know, with all this extra time and creative energy, like you can't keep us waiting until 2027.
I definitely realized that my creative process is like a little bit slower. When you live in Nashville, you have people showing up to open mics and writers' rounds and they're like, I literally wrote this song on the way here. I am not like that. But with having more time, I'm definitely thinking that's going to cut down on the time just a little bit. So instead of every 3 years, maybe every couple of years.
I mean, I admire any artist that has the patience to sit on their material and not just rush to get it out like I do. And I always wonder, like, how do you know you have a whole album you're working on and you just wait for a few years and have all that excitement within you, but you're not sharing it? But maybe does it make a difference if you have a lot of material that's already out there? Because I know, like, you perform live, you do shows. Does it change the impatience? I mean, that's assuming you are impatient because not everyone is.
I was feeling like a little bit frustrated over the winter time because I was like, I don't have any new songs. Like I said, I live in this town where like everybody's churning out songs constantly. And sometimes I feel like a bit of a failure for not being more prolific, but I'm very deliberate in the way that I write and the way that I produce. And I think not being ashamed of the fact that my creative process is a little bit more slow, but I churn out a little bit more material in the space between one song and the next. I have a show coming up in a couple of weeks and I put 2 new songs on the set list because I just wanted to play more songs. So when I have a lot of material, I will be playing those songs out live, even if they're not recorded, because I was playing the songs from Highway Hypnosis for like a couple of years. Finer Things is one of the oldest songs on that record. record, I actually wrote it before I moved to Colorado. So some of the songs I can sit on for years, like 5 years or more, but I'll be playing them out because they're written. They're just not recorded. I had to stop playing writers rounds and open mics for a while because I just ran out of things to play. And then, like I said, you get people who are like, I just wrote this on the way here. And I'm like, literally, how do you do that? My Virgo ass could never.
Yeah, like it's not perfect. I didn't sit on it for 3 days and overthink it, assuming that's what you did.
It's more like
That
3
was the
months,
stereotypical.
2 years. To answer your question, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody just has a different creative process. You're more of like a singles artist. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. That's how you create, and that's awesome. I mean, it's better to just create at your pace rather than like if you struggle to write a ton of songs at once, don't force yourself to, because you're going to churn out a lot of things that like you're probably not going to end up being super proud of because you're doing it for the sake of doing it, not for the sake of expressing yourself or creating. I'm more of an album girly. That's how I listen to music. That's how I write music. It's just different strokes, different creative processes.
I also think it's what we are being told about the algorithm. So there's also that. But, I think eventually I would want to create an album and something that's cohesive. But at the moment, there are these songs that have been in me for years that never came out in any form. You mentioned, you being in Nashville. How has your artistry and just general life as a musician changed since moving there?
Oh my God, so much. Like Denver has a pretty robust music scene. There's a lot of creativity and there's a lot of talent in Denver, but it's nowhere near the level that it is in Nashville because Nashville is a music industry hub. And so you are playing open mics and writers rounds with people who've been doing this for 10 years. They've been on tours. Some of them have won Grammys. And so the bar is just that much higher. At first, that really intimidated me, but now I kind of see this as music school 2.0, learning from the inside how the industry works and what makes people successful, because it's not just talent and it's not just like strong branding. Like you have to have a good work ethic, you have to be disciplined, and you have to be a generally pleasant person to be around. It has definitely inspired me to take this so much more seriously and be more professional and hold myself to a higher professional standard for everything, not just the music itself, but like my live performances. I had a show booked in late March. I started rehearsing for it in late January because when you're a professional musician, you're going on tour, you will start rehearsing for that like 6 months before the first date. I've learned so much about the industry. I've improved so much as an artist and as a performer, but also just as a professional musician. I think it's really challenged me to get better at my craft. I would say my vocal abilities have always been pretty strong, but it's that much stronger now that I know how hard everybody works. And my keys playing has gotten a lot better too, as well as my brand, my producing, everything. And I have made a lot of connections, and I'm hoping that the connections that I make here will also help propel my career forward. It has definitely not just inspired me to like take my stuff up to the next level. It's also inspired me to dream a little bit bigger because you see it happening in real time here. It feels that much more tangible.
That's amazing. I mean, they always say to surround yourself with the people that will inspire you and push you to be your best self. If someone had the opportunity to move to a place like that, you would recommend it?
I would say if you feel like you have the opportunity, don't discount it. It's pretty normal to move to a new place for a job, especially in America. And Nashville is no exception. It does have its own host of challenges. And I will say that I feel constantly homesick for Colorado. That has not changed since I moved here, but it is worth the sacrifice to improve yourself and improve your career prospects. So I would definitely recommend it if it's in the cards. If it's not, don't feel bad. Like you don't have to live in a place like Nashville to be a successful musician. I just think that when you do live in a place like Nashville, you learn firsthand what it takes to be a successful musician.
Yeah, I mean, I'm European. We don't know so much about the American music scene other than Hollywood and LA and maybe New York. I think it was through you that I learned that Nashville was a place to be for musicians. How is it different to, let's say, LA?
I'd say it's a totally different culture. I like to call it country fried LA because the kind of ridiculousness that you get living in LA with like all the celebrities and all the famous people just like living normal lives, you get that here. But Nashville is definitely more geared towards country music and Americana and stuff like that, like folk music. That's not the only thing. There's plenty of pop musicians, there's plenty of rock musicians out here. I gravitated towards Nashville because it's just cheaper to live here than it is in New York or LA. My husband and I were trying to be a little bit more conscientious of budgetary constraints. If we really wanted to live somewhere like LA, we could make it work, but it would be extremely difficult. Living in Nashville, we have been privileged enough to be able to buy a house house rather than renting. And that was a big financial goal for us, was to be able to own property. Whereas like if we were living somewhere like New York or LA, that would be a lot more difficult. I feel like musically I'd probably fit in better somewhere like New York or LA, but Nashville made the most sense for us for where we were at. That being said, because Nashville is a music industry hub, there is a lot of connections to LA and New York through Nashville. It's not just like its own little bubble. It's the music industry. There's a lot of labels here that are also based in LA and New York.
Thank you for educating us on the other part of the world. It's interesting to know, having the opportunity, let's say money isn't an object. What would be your ideal place to live then to make music?
Anywhere in the world? I mean, that's like such a challenge because I don't know what other music scenes are like. My husband and I keep floating the idea of, once I feel like I've accomplished enough in Nashville, moving back to Colorado. If money wasn't an object and also like you could make music from anywhere, I would ideally like to just live somewhere that's really mountainous and have a music career there. But if it's like specifically a music industry hub, that's a little bit of a tougher question for me to answer. I feel like LA would be awesome, but I feel like I'd probably have some complaints about like, oh, there's no snow here. That's definitely a tough one. My question for you is like, what's the music industry scene like in Europe?
I live in a small town in Greece right now. I mean, obviously London. It's ironic because I lived in London for 10 years and then I moved to Greece, and that is when I decided to pursue music. For Europe, yeah, England would be the big one. Like, I find that not that many European artists make it big worldwide, unless you move to either England or America. So I guess my dream has been to like be the representative of Poland and Lebanon and Gambia all in one. Like, Korea is another big music place right now. When I figure out a bit more, I'll get back to you on this question. We will circle back.
I appreciate that. The French Alps. That's where I would make music from.
I drove through Austria and Slovenia, and it was amazing, I have to say.
Yeah.
But if you came to visit me, you can see Olympus from where I live.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I do know how you love your mythology.
What gave it away?
What is your ideal life as a musician? Like, what would be the end goal for you? Or are you living it already?
I'm pretty close, but I love the idea of having like a professional grade home studio in like the middle of the mountains somewhere and just recording and releasing albums and stuff from there, but also like recording my friends and hosting them. I would love to go on tours. I think it'd be really cool to win a Grammy someday. If that's in the cards, even just getting a nomination. I keep telling my husband, if I win a Grammy, I'm drinking champagne out of it every day. I think it'd be cool to win some awards. I think it'd be really cool to make somewhat of a decent living. Like, I don't want to be extremely wealthy. I just want to live comfortably. Yeah, I love the idea of having a really idyllic setting where I make and record music.
That's beautiful. I have this idea that we have these conversations now, and then in a few years, it will be shown like this was what Arily Michele was saying a few years ago, and now accepting her Grammy.
I mean, that's kind of how I see like my day-to-day life. These are the kinds of things that like fan accounts repost. Like, oh, here's, Chapel Roan playing in a park to like 10 people in like 2021 or whatever. And this is part of my like manifestation process, is like visualizing that the moments that I'm living in now are the moments that are played in my highlight reel, when they're like getting ready to announce that I'm nominated for something. It does help to kind of glamorize the mundane a little bit.
This has actually also given me an idea for an episode where we just talk about manifestation.
You've brought it up in every single podcast. It's almost like we're all witches.
I would say manifestation is now just like any other ordinary thing. Like, come on, let's finally accept that it's a thing. It's not necessarily witchy.
It totally is.
It's science. I would love that for you to happen. And, looking back on this and thinking like, wow, we were having that conversation and now I'm here.
Yeah.
The last question, I know you just said that it's not a goal to be stupid rich, but imagining you had $1 million to spend only on your music, what would you do with it? How would you invest it to propel your career from where it is now?
I would have the most souped up home studio. Like, I'm talking like a 64 channel analog mixing console, microphones, all of the vintage analog synths your heart could ever want. I'd spend it all on gear because that's kind of what I do already. Oh man, maybe I'd hire like a manager or somebody.
Okay. All right. So we
I'd
know.
spend half of it on a state-of-the-art home studio and then the other half on like management.
So if anybody wants to get Arily any gifts, you just heard it. I just realized my mic's been upside down this whole time. Is this better?
Oh my God, yes it is.
Oh.
We're gonna have to start over.
Was it very bad before, or was it?
No, I could just hear a lot more of the room, your voice reverberating off the walls. You're still audible. It's just not as like crisp and clear.
All right. Well, technical issues. Is there anything else you would like to mention before we finish for today? Is there any takeaway that you would like our listeners to take away?
Stream Highway Hypnosis. That's all.
Perfect.
I did not promote this album enough. I'm working on it. It's a very long process.
Let's hope everybody sees this, everybody in the entire world, and they will all stream Highway Hypnosis on all streaming platforms. And they will also follow you on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Tidal, subscribe to your YouTube channel, and follow you on Instagram.
I like to get stoned and shitpost on Threads. So follow me on Threads for hilarious content.
I appreciate your stoned contribution on Threads. We all do. Thanks you for your service. Thanks so much. It was fun. And thank you for all your goddesses work. Who is your favorite goddess, by the way?
I mean, I gravitate towards Persephone a lot, but I feel like Hecate has been whipping my ass into shape lately. So shout out Hecate and Artemis. I feel like those three are like my witchy core. Artemis, Persephone, and Hecate, moon ladies.
I will try and find a photo of them or a painting in pink, and then I can use that for your promo photo. Thank you once again. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.